let's call the meeting to order. So the reapportionment task force of Wednesday, November 3rd is now called to order. Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Ford,
Present.
Roz,
Here.
Gums,
Here.
Kenyon, Martin,
Martin present.
Sanchez, Shepro, Strathman, Gately,
Here.
Meyer,
Present.
Arnold, Shoki,
Here.
Afif,
Here.
Hernandez, here, Pedersen,
Here.
Rivera, Walter. You have a quorum.
Very nice. Okay. May I please have a motion and a second to approve? We have a few minutes. I hope you've all had a chance to review them. Okay, can I say out loud, July 7th, July 15th, July 16th, and September 7th, approved by, moved by Kenyon. Second, please.
Gums will second.
Thank you, Ms. Gums. Are there any edits to these minutes? Hearing none, clerk, please call the roll.
Ford,
Yes.
thank you, Froz,
Yes.
Gums,
Yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Sanchez, Shepro, Strathman.
Okay,
Passes.
thank you very much. All passes. Are there any public comments? I am not aware of any. Yes, do we have? And you signed up. Okay, very good. Could we get your name, please, and your address for the record?
Name is Mark Avalar. I live at 2073 Peachtree Lane in Algonquin, Illinois. I live in member Caius's district in the
And-
23rd.
Mark, could you please spell your last name?
Last name is A, V as in victory, E-L-A-R. First name is Mark with a C.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Because I'm just inquiring, I know I spoke publicly at last month's executive committee concerning a timeline. We're now into November, I think is a mid-November timeline where the chair must formally present the map for public hearing and then formal approval by the end of the year. So between now and the next 2 weeks, I presume you're going to be.
Point of clarification, that has changed, and I'll share with you the change as soon as you get done.
Okay, and I'm sure the task force will be on that too. So I just want to express that I am pleased with the version that was posted right behind you. If that's the latest version, it looks like the inputs I've given through Mr. Caius and other board members of keeping the village of Algonquin together has been honored. And that's what I see here. And the 8,218 residents are kept together in the same district in member Caius's district. So I'm grateful. I do not know what the timeline and the calendar will be, which you will let us know, but I know there'll be a public hearing component, and I'll just reserve any other comments or suggested changes to the formal public hearing based on what the date of the map that you're going to issue. But again, thank you for honoring the set of changes I already shared, and we'll look forward to hearing the rest of your information.
Okay,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much. Welcome, Mr. Shepro. If there's no other public comments, I'd like to go to my own comments now. And just a quick review before we go forward. We started these meetings on April 22nd. We've all gotten a little older because of all of this. There have been at least 12 meetings that have had formal meetings. There have been countless informal meetings, talking to board members individually, talking to them with group in respect to the Open Meetings Act, with staff, with Roger. There has been emails that have been received both from the public as well as from board members and task force members regarding the maps. And we have tried to be as responsive as we possibly can to your concerns and your needs. We have not been able to be responsive to concerns that have not been vocalized to us or put into an email. So I would urge at this juncture, any of the task force members only, please, at this point, if you have any other changes that need to be made, that you give those to us by Thursday, close of day. And that Thursday date is, that's not my dog. November 9th. No, what is today's the third,
Today's the
fourth, the
third.
fifth, November 5th,
Guy
please.
Fawkes Day.
So that we are able to give them to Roger so that we can make those adjustments as we give it to the county board for their approval, which will meet next week. And that'll be approval for the provisional map, the provisional draft map. At that point, we will be sending that map out to our public hearings, which will be on November 15th in Elgin, at Elgin Community College, and November 17th here at the Government Center. Both meetings start at 6 p.m. They will be available online as well, traditional YouTube channel. We will be welcoming public comments.
At 6 p.m.?
6 p.m. That's correct. Upon conclusion of getting input from the public, I realize that Thanksgiving will be presented at that following week. So I'm sure that staff and all of you will be visiting families or baking pies, whatever you're doing to prepare for your Thanksgiving celebration. The final draft map will then be presented to the county board for their approval on November 30th. Now, there was a question addressed regarding the due date. There was an error that we have had corrected, and that was County Code number 55 ILCS /52-3004. That date incorrectly said the third Wednesday of November, when it actually should be December 31st. So I brought that to the attention of Don Harmon and Representative Welsh, and that legislation was updated to correctly be December 31st. But I don't think that any of you want to come here during the Christmas holidays. I frankly will be out of town to approve a map. So November 30th seems like an appropriate day to complete this task. Otherwise, we will be sharing Christmas presents with each other, or Hanukkah, or Kwanzaa.
Yeah, I like that's a good idea.
Yeah, oh, good. You're welcome to my house. So that's our basic timeline of what we have. We're almost there. And again, it's critically important that if there's any suggested changes we receive from you, and they're welcomed, I mean, they're welcomed. Please don't feel that you don't need to, that you cannot. Please send those to us in writing so that we know exactly what it is that you are requiring and what you need. We may not be able to comply with your wishes because we have certain restrictions that we have to, that we have previously agreed to, meeting our voting rights districts. We have 8 of them, and our population. I believe, Roger, it's 21,000.
500.
21.5, and I would like 1% deviation. We've kind of bent it a little bit because of district needs to about 2%. So I want it as equal as possible so that we don't have huge fluctuations between the size of our districts and the population. And noted again that I realize that we're drawing it for today, but there will be changes happening again within the next 10 years that we're going to be doing this. So it's been, to me, a learning curve. It's been incredibly interesting. It's been a fruitful conversation. I've learned much about the district. I've learned very much about the needs of our county board members and our constituents during this exercise. I can see why it's done every 10 years. It is an arduous task. I hope you have found it to be an open bipartisan process and that we are truly drawing fair maps, because there has been every intent to make sure that we do so and will continue to do so, so that we will fairly represent the constituents of Kane County. So with that, I would like to turn this over now to Roger, who will be presenting the changes that have been made recently with all of the different drafts. And as a highlight for the board, we're going to be showing you at the board meeting all of the different versions of the maps that have been drawn from the very get-go, from the very beginning, all the way to what this final draft is going to be looking like, because we won't have those results until we get your input for the next few days. Okay, Roger, please.
This is on. Okay. So I'm going to take a second and share a screen. And this will be, let me grab that and share. Okay. So from the last meeting to this meeting, we've received about 20 different recommendations, and those come in the form of, I want this precinct in my district, or I want this precinct moved out of my district, or particular areas of the county. While looking at the 24 districts, we had some specific guidance and rules established that are based on the Voting Rights Act, and then also some of the ordinances and statutes that apply. But most of that is specific to how do we maintain the VRA districts. The original number of districts that we had before we started were 8. It was District 1, District 3, 6, 7, 8, 17, 20, and 24. And we were asked to maintain those VRA districts, even though we were moving population around. Now, in trying to keep the VRA districts intact, we were looking at 63% Hispanic in a district. And then the voting age population, they were looking at 59%. It was around 59. So it was about 4% difference between Hispanic population and Hispanic voting age population. So we had discussed also whether or not you could get citizen voting age population data, and we found that the Department of Justice has never made another request for that information, so it's not in the census data, and there's no plans from the census to do citizen voting age population. So we have population at about 21,500, and you can say plus or minus 500 people to keep within deviation. And then you have the Hispanic population, which we were trying to focus on 63%, and the VRA districts. You'll see the work that Josina did. If you look at the districts, again, District 1 is 64%, District 3 is 65% Hispanic, District 6 is 62, 7 is 64, 8 is 63, 17 is 66, 20 is 63, and then the 24th district just rolled right off the screen. It is 24 is at 66. So those are the VRA districts that we were trying to keep intact. The rest of the changes were noted and provided to Josina and the demographer, Zach Couts. I don't know if Zach is on. Is Zach on, Claire? He's on?
He's on.
Okay, good. Welcome, Zach.
Hey there, and it's Kautsky, if you have any
Kautsky,
questions.
I'm sorry.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I'm just running. So keeping the VRA districts intact was important. Then we moved out to the other districts. So in looking at those, we had a number of changes that were incorporated in the map you see up here, which doesn't provide a lot of detail. It's mostly shapes. So we get the shapes and the data from the demographers, and then we pull that into the county GIS maps, which I'm going to show you in a second. The county GIS map that was provided to the task force and board members It is being posted to the website right now. We didn't have it until basically the agenda was posted with that map in the board office, but we haven't put it on the website. I believe it'll be out there probably before the meeting's over. But anyway, the detail of that map provides, down to roads and also some precinct data. But this is the map that we get for the shape. So I'll switch over to the other map, which provides more detail. So this map has streets and roads. And if you download this map, it is a large map. And as you zoom in, it'll provide more detail on more roads. So at this extent, you're only at 36%. When you go to 100, it's going to blow up the map considerably larger, and you'll see more road detail. As the gentleman mentioned from Algonquin, we went through and tried to accommodate keeping villages and municipalities as best we can intact. We made some changes that involved a couple of different areas. I don't know if we want to get into all 20 of them, but they certainly, as many as we could incorporate. And then even in the last couple of days, we've been making additional changes that anybody has requested. I have 2 right now that we're working on, and I know that they're working on a couple of things for the city of Aurora and the districts down there as well.
And as a point of clarification, the map as, I know you won't be able to see it, but at the bottom of the map with Aurora, those do not reflect any potential changes that may be occurring. There was a meeting today with the Aurora. I think Ms. Bates was there and Ms. Molina was there.
Yes.
As representatives of the Aurora's concerns. And I know some of our Aurora board members are content with the map as it is presented. Others would like to make some changes. I am not aware of what the outcome of that conversation is, because it has just occurred. So those will be shared with me, and if appropriate, some of the changes may happen, but always protecting the VRA districts.
So in the southeast, this would be Aurora, and you can see District 1 and 7. They're side by side on the east side. District 8 down below, 3, 4, and 6. And again, the VRA districts are 1, 3, 6, 7, and 8 down there. But this is the map that was drawn with Grapple and the demographers. And again, we are working on the recommendations that we're receiving from Aurora. As you move out to the west, this is District 5. District 5 traditionally has been the southwest corner of the county. You're going to see that in order to take on more population, the border out here is moving a little bit farther to the west, and then District 5 moved farther north, and you'll see it comes up, whoops, went too far.
Perhaps before we move away from Aurora,
Sure.
we want to, if you could share, or Zach, if you can please share with the task force the changes of population that occurred to Aurora, and more specifically, what happened with some of the district changes that had been drawn previously, the impact that had. I know that there was a 9% drop in Aurora population as a whole account for the census.
Yeah, you stole my thunder there, Chair. I mean, there was. So when we were dealing with the American Community Survey data that showed, slight growth countywide. And then in August, or was it September by that point, when the census data finally dropped on us, to everyone's shock and dismay, you basically lost a county board district's worth of population in Aurora. Now, Aurora obviously bleeding into multiple counties, doesn't mean that it was all just out of Kane County, but itself, the city lost a significant, almost double-digit decline. I know there's efforts ongoing, both at the city to try and get their arms around that. But again, to reiterate, for the purposes of the adoption and consideration of this map by the statutory deadline, none of those efforts will align with when you have to pass this map for consideration. And those may be years on down the road for ultimate, revisit and consideration. So because of that, then the Aurora southeastern portion of the county had to have a significant redraw from where we had, begun this process. Again, to the chair's point, and certainly for legal consideration, maintaining Voting Rights Act consideration and populations were the priority, but the districts themselves then had to shift significantly to account for that population loss. And so what you see before you now is one that maintains those Voting Rights Act populations that we're deeming sufficiently enough to withstand any type of challenge if it were to come, while also then having to meet the reality that these districts had to grow to meet the overall deviation requirements that the task force and the board had set out, so that we're not taking it to the extreme of allowance, but staying within a general mean of deviation.
And as far as growth goes, I believe not growth in population, but growth in population count had space, geography. It had to grow to get the population in there because the population shrank. So area, land mass had to grow in order to gain the population.
So I think we looked at the population in Aurora, on the King County side was about a 10,000 person difference in just the King County side, which is for the King County population of Aurora was pretty significant. And then as you move up to the northwest in Rutland, it's the increase of 10,000. So the net population of the county is within about 1,000 people from 2010 to 2020 as far as the census is concerned. So our population was, remarkably flat according to the census. I know there's dispute about different numbers, but that's kind of the numbers that we have to work with from the census. So again, if you move out from Aurora to the west, you'll see District 5 continues to move, north. And when that's districts that are outside of Aurora trying to gain more population in that northwest corner, you're going to see a lot of these districts that start on the edge of Randall Road or, near the western kind of corridor, and they move west and north. And that's just to accommodate the population. You'll see the same thing happening in Dale Berman in District 2. He has, a portion of North Aurora in through here, and you'll see it move out west quickly. And that's because we're trying to accommodate the growth of population in the northwest. And at the same time, we had less population in the southeast in Aurora. And then you'll see the districts along the river, and then you'll come up to the next district, which is another one that starts along the, this is actually Mill Creek area in Geneva, unincorporated, and it immediately starts going out west and picks up Elburn, part of Blackberry, out to Maple Park on the border. So you'll see that trend where it moves northwest. Same type of trend happens as you move through St. Charles. You'll start seeing a couple of districts along the river, and then immediately as you get to that western side of the county, you're going to see District 14 takes up portions of St. Charles and moves north and west to take up population. Same thing with District 15, which is Campton Hills primarily, moves north and west. So, while we have changes in Aurora and Elgin that are street by street, some of the western township areas are having to take on large geography to accommodate the population changes as well. So it's not just, in the urban area that's being affected. The board members that are out closer to Route 47 are all being taken further west and north to try and grab additional area and population. Up north, you'll see District 9, which has Hampshire and Huntley. That was another request, was trying to keep Hampshire and Huntley as municipalities together. So that's in there. And then as you move over to the northeast side, you're getting the 3 other VRA districts, which are in Carpentersville and Elgin. Yes.
Yeah, just one.
Yeah, there's 2 in Elgin and 1 in Carpentersville. You have 17, 20, and 24. So that's 24 up in the far northeast. And then as you move down, you'll see the dense population of Elgin right here, which is 17 and 20 right in here along the eastern border. Again, we've made a lot of the smaller changes between neighborhoods and streets. We have a few more that we're working on, and then we're waiting to determine where we're at with the Aurora VRA districts. If there's anything that we can do to change those, we're working on that probably in the next week. I think that other than those few changes, that's kind of the status of the map. I think the schedule for presenting it to the board and then the hearings is our next biggest concern. So that if you have questions, I'd be happy to try and answer. If you want to zoom in on an area, we'd be happy to do that as well.
Are there any questions?
Can I make just a couple comments?
Absolutely, Mr. Shuck.
First of all, I'd like to commend the county staff. I think they've done an excellent job in a very difficult task here, trying to figure out where things disappeared and where they haven't. I'm only going to talk about my community as an example. I think our city council and myself are of the opinion that we had some census challenges that weren't really reacted to in the actual count. And I say that because the number they gave us for our new population was 74 people more than it was in 2010. Over a 10-year period, they said that we had grown 74 people in Batavia. Now, interestingly, I have a subdivision out on the west side called Tanglewood, and in the last 10 years, it's been shorter than that, we've added 62 new houses in Tanglewood subdivision. Now, if the count was right, that would be less than 1 person per house in the new houses. Then we've got I don't want to go into it, but we've got a number of areas where we knew we've grown more population. So, I was part of a conversation with the Census Bureau directly with the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus in Chicago, and they indicated that, they're kind of backed up in work here and that they would not be in a position to authorize any special censuses till the fall of 2023. And I sat in, the city of Aurora was in that same conversation with us. So they were immediately of the mindset that they were going to obviously go for a special census. I told them right then, I said, well, Batavia, we were getting ready to do our budget. I was going to put it in for next year, but I guess I won't because you can't do it next year. So we will definitely talk to the city council Tuesday night about we'll do a special census in Batavia as soon as we can in 2023. Because right now in Batavia, we've got over 400 new houses in construction, specifically out there on Kirk Road at Wind Energy Pass. We have 242 townhouses there. We've got some other stuff that's kind of come up real quick. And so we know that by 2023, we're going to have a whole bunch more people. And, for cities, it's a big loss here when you consider that the local government distributing fund, which is a state income tax, of course, the number moves around every year, but it's right now, I guess, for the opinion, it's someplace between $110 and $121 per head that each city in the state of Illinois gets. And, in the case of Aurora, if they lost 17,000 people, you're in the millions of dollars here.
Per year, yes.
Per
that's
year.
Correct. That is
And you're in a rough situation. And I know I've had several opportunities to talk directly with Mayor Irwin. He and I are old friends. And he was telling me about, where we think you lost the population in Aurora. But quite honestly, I went down there and rode around, tried to find all the empty houses. And they're not evident to me. I mean, maybe there's a bunch of stuff that's sitting there with nobody living in it, but I certainly couldn't find evidence of it. So I'm not trying to cast any aspersions on anybody here, but this thing doesn't seem to have been done, not us, but at the Census Bureau, there's some missing pieces here someplace along the line.
And thank you for those. And I believe Geneva, is Geneva looking at doing a count as well?
I have not talked to Mayor Burns about it, but I think a lot of the cities in Kane County, and again, no reaction to the staff, you've done as best you could, but these numbers, if you look at the nitty gritty, in my case, I can go in, look at the utility bills about, how much water are we using in each one of these houses? I don't have anybody that's not using water, and I have some of them that certainly indicate there could be 4 or 5 people in this house, and there's some suspicion, maybe some of these people are in here illegally or whatever, don't want anybody to know where they're at, so they're in here using facilities, but we don't know, for sure who's where in some of this stuff, so there's.
But to your point, we are only can use for this mapping process the numbers that the census has given to us. So whether we agree with them or not, we are dealt the hand that we have to play.
And we can't get a recount till 2023, so all of us are gonna have to sit here for a couple of years and take in our losses.
For the next 10 years.
No, that might come out to your benefit with those 400 houses.
So just a quick question. Do they pay you in arrears if they've made a mistake? Does the state of Illinois pay you in arrears for money owed?
I don't believe so. They're basing it on the current population that's recorded.
It's a periodic distribution during the year, right?
Yeah, I
Correct,
believe
that's
so.
correct.
It's called the local government, LGDF, Local
Mhm.
Government Distributing
Distribution.
Fund.
Mhm.
And it is according, I believe it's in the state constitution that the cities in Illinois initially were supposed to get 12% of the total state income tax. That was where the money came from. And that has been kind of reduced over the years through some way. It should have been a constitutional amendment.
I don't think it's in the Constitution.
Well, anyway, the cities think that they should be getting 12. We think now it's probably closer to 8% of this pot. And so there was a bill introduced in Springfield to bring it up to at least 10% of the total state income
Yeah, a
tax.
couple of years ago, there was.
Yeah, they've been fighting about that for a couple,
Take it away.
right, they were gonna take it away because I don't know what the state's finances are. That's one of the bigger mysteries on the planet, but
Okay,
We're doing
well, thank
better.
you.
State's doing better.
The state is doing better. Mr. Shepro?
Well, yeah, to the mayor's point, I think there obviously is a remedy, whether it's complete, obviously. But as I understand it, that can only get you money. They cannot revisit the
right, they can't.
redistricting
Right.
data.
Because it is a point in time.
Yeah, and I think just about everybody agrees that some unknown number of people were missed. But it seems to be, at this point, nothing much anybody can do about it. I had a question for Roger. Do we have a number now for how many of the existing precincts have been split between board districts? I know that number was pretty high with one of the earlier maps, and it seems as if it is considerably lower.
We have been following as best we can precinct and block. So census blocks are blocks of people, 300 to 3,000 people in a block. And in order for us to kind of have the smallest denominator, smallest divisible is the block. So we try not to split blocks because inside the block, you can't really tell how many people are on which side of the street. It's just a block and it tells you how many people are in the block. So that's our smallest, and some blocks do split precincts. We've been trying to minimize that. We try to follow the precincts as best we can. Unfortunately, we have really large precincts, which you obviously are going to have to divide at some point just to get the numbers to work. So, and then when we go inside of a precinct, we simply use the blocks from the census. I think eventually when we get to that, the precincts, I know there's legislation, there's lots of discussion about what happens with the precincts. That's yet to be determined. I think where the county board wants to go with precincts.
Right, but I'm just curious.
We could add that up and
as to
tell
how
you.
many
Yeah.
of the existing ones are split. I mean, obviously at some point, I should say obviously, at
It's,
some point, we may do something about it. I think the consensus
Yeah.
of the group that met with Jack and his staff was that there
Jack
just simply
Cunningham.
was not sufficient time to do what we needed to do, and we're just gonna have to put it off.
So the precincts, just so everybody's clear, they're not going to be changed. At least, so whatever existing precinct we have right now, no matter what, how the county board map changes, the precinct will remain intact. We simply do not have enough time pending the January, what is it, 12th?
13th,
The 13th, the 13th.
13th, yeah.
You're going out to get signatures to adjust all of the precincts appropriately. Those are going to be reconsidered. The precincts will be reconsidered, and I don't know if we're going to actually redraw them in time for the presidential election.
so I had a follow-up.
Madam Chair, could I just chime in on that? Because this is
Oh,
an issue that's been brought up in a couple of counties that we're working in.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I would just say,
And just
to-
for everybody online, it's Zach
oh,
Kowski.
sorry, yes, sorry, Zach Kautsky. So I would say, one, the elections omnibus bill that was passed in Springfield did allow for individual precincts now to go up to, I believe, 1,200 voters from the standard of around 800 currently. So you will see quite a few jurisdictions probably redraw at any point. But, the concern about splitting of precincts, is permissible within the state statute. It's, they encourage you to try and contain them wholly within all districts being overlaid onto each other. Obviously, with the delay of the census that is delayed, obviously the implementation and adoption of federal, state, and now local on that. But you are permissible, you are allowed, permitted to have, precincts go into different districts on this end. But ultimately, just for everyone's consideration, and I think Roger touched on it, I just want to say from the consultants end, we did not draw by precinct because precincts themselves, the assumption and belief is they can change election to election. We were having to draw on an individual basis because of the one person, one vote principle in this. So that's what we drew by while trying to maintain in some consideration existing boundaries. But the directive that we got from most here was that, townships and municipalities were far more import than, individual precincts were.
Can I respond to that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, when I asked the question about how many were split, I was not implying criticism. And I sort of feel as if the answer didn't really answer the question. I mean, I understand and I know, and I've worked for years, I understand what the laws are with respect to precincts. I understand that they are not juridical entities that have to be compact, contiguous, or comply with any federal act.
Sure.
I just wanted to know if we had a number on how many of the existing precincts were split, recognizing that that mostly probably creates a problem for the guys out there in the clerk's office. I just wondered what that number was.
And we can't possibly exactly know that information yet until the map is.
Well, I mean, but we would know how many precincts this map splits, just as we were told what that number was for a previous map. But I guess I have a more relevant question, which is to the clerk representatives, unless you're going to have them later. But I wanted to ask, given where we are now, and assuming a November 30th date, and the petition period is set by statute, we still, I guess, do not have an actual signed congressional map. And there's still litigation pending with the state legislative remap. And there's obviously an immense amount of work that has to be done to get boundaries drawn, petitions ready to be picked up. And I just wondered if you could update us on what you think that timeline is going to be and how close you're going to be tested to be able to get things ready by January 13th.
Could we table that, or appropriate use of table, to,
Oh, indefinitely?
no, I don't want to postpone it indefinitely, but truly table that because that would be informative to hear. But until we get done talking about the actual district map for our 24-member district, because that's holistic in approach. I want to make sure that we have everybody's input upon the districts themselves, the 24 county board districts, before we answer that question. So we can just put that on hold for a little bit.
Can I substitute then? Do we have, could we get a list of what the changes were? I mean, we could try to compare the two maps, but that's a tedious task.
Sure.
Now, yeah,
I believe we have that, and that was sent to,
To the districts that were touched.
right.
So we have notes on each
Yeah,
district.
I think it would be helpful for us to save some time to be able to look and say, okay, here were the changes to 2, 9, et cetera.
They were all non-VRA. We didn't touch any of the VRA, so.
can we go back to Aurora, pending the outcome of that conversation that happened directly before this meeting? If you can just scroll down.
This is 8.
Are we
District
there?
1. Yep.
All right. So you can see 2 and 1. If any of the external boundaries that go outside of the general Aurora area, which will mean 1, 4, and
Down in the
3,
bottom 3.
3, start adjusting beyond where they are currently. In my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we're back to beginning drawing the entire map again. Because we started in the southeast corner and went north and west. So any adjustments that are made to those lines, we basically begin all over again. Perhaps not all of the 24 districts would have to be redrawn, and Phil is standing up here and perhaps he can help fill this in, but that is my understanding, which is why I'm very cautious about making substantive changes to the Aurora area because of potential impact that may have on the rest of the map, which means we would be delayed and possibly be here around the holiday season. Phil, can you help me out with this?
Yeah. We had a couple-hour meeting with Ms. Bates and Ms. Molina just before this meeting. We've made some suggested changes to Aurora, mostly internal, that we have asked Myrna and Mavis to take back to the district, to the Aurora District Board members to look at. And hopefully, Myrna, if I'm saying this, or if I'm saying this wrong, Ms. Bates, let me know. But hopefully we're going to get them their particular districts. They are very, very close to what we need them to be. And ask them, hopefully in the next 24, 36 hours, to tell us what part of their district they really, really don't want to see changed. And maybe make some internal changes along there. There was very, very little movement outside of Aurora that makes a few hundred people change in 2 areas. I'm hoping that can be worked out. If not, we'll have to stay inside of it. But we're still kind of working through that. But the changes that we're suggesting outside of those 6 districts are very, very small and would really, I think, only affect 2 other districts on a very minimal amount.
That would be 2 and 5?
That would be 5. And I think it's what's to the north of 5?
2?
No, to the north of 5. I'm sorry. I think it's 18.
18.
18, Mr. Frost. Yes, and we want to have a conversation with you to see if what we're thinking about works before we kind of make it public, I guess is probably the best way to put it. So it would be very minor, in the hundreds of people's, not significant, and just on the borders of a couple areas. And we tried to take into account areas. I know Mr. Frost has certain areas that he's been trying to keep for a while in this process, and they're not that area. How's that? So we think we may be very close. I'm hoping that if we can get the Aurora, if we can get Mr. Frost, et cetera, okay with what we're suggesting, that we can then get the Aurora people to provide Josina, provide me and Josina, their kind of sacred cows, for lack of a better word, so we can clean up. Right now, what we're proposing has everybody in the deviation, which is probably the first time that we've had Aurora, at least that the Aurora members like, inside the deviation. So, and we've got them all at 6, the lowest VRA districts at 62. We'd obviously like to find a way to get to that to 63 or up a little bit. But I think in reality, Josina is much better at doing that than the 5 of us sitting around the table who are not experts at it. Because once you move something, there's ways to kind of rotate things to make them work. So I think we have a format's not the right word, but kind of a plan that we can work through that area here in the next several days in time to not mess up what may be the calendar that we've kind of talked about internally with the chair. I think that's probably about the best I can do at this point. Ms. Bates, if you want to add something to it, but I think that's a fair representation of where we are.
I did speak with Mr. Ford today. Is he here? Mr. Ford, can you please confirm, because recent conversation that you and I had previously, that your district is satisfactory for you? Is that correct?
Are you there?
Mr. Ford, are you there? I know he's online. He's muted. But just so you're aware, and I'm sure that he will give you input. But the earlier conversation we had, he said that his district, it works well for him and he's satisfied with it.
I think the changes may have only changed like 2 blocks of Mr. Ford's district. It wasn't significant. When I say blocks, I mean census blocks, but
Okay.
it was not a significant change in that area whatsoever.
So, thank you. Obviously, we have to work, and we've been trying to work as efficiently and as quickly as we possibly can with this. And I know that there has been an awful lot of input, and it takes time to get people together, to discuss, to agree, and to bring things forward. But we are at a critical deadline right now, and we have to move forward. We have flexibility for the November 30th deadline. We do have flexibility. We do have until December 29th or December 31st, my apologies. But to an earlier point that was presented by Mr. Shepro, the longer we take to decide this map, the more changes we make to this map, whether you feel they're appropriate, they're vital, they're necessary, or just wanted, the longer it's going to take for our clerk to get all the material out so that they can get it out to the voters, so they can do everything else that they need to do. And we've asked them before, and perhaps, Mr. Pollack, you're here. Can you come up? And I know I don't mean to put you on the spot, but can you just remind us or share with us your process and the timeline of this, Brian?
Madam Chair, this is Miss Molina. May I say something while Brian collects himself?
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. I'd just like to extend my thanks to Phil and Roger's team for meeting with Mavis and I this afternoon for a few hours. As many of you know, the Aurora caucus as a whole has been providing suggestions and recommendations to our demographer since they've been asked. And time again, we've received no response back. So we all agree that we've had a set deadline. And again, I appreciate the last 2 hours of everyone's time today. But I really wish that we would have been able to sit down and had some feedback prior to this meeting today. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Raymond. So the process for doing that is I mean, it takes a while. It's gonna take us close to like about 2, maybe a month. And that's only county board. We still got to do congressional, legislative. So we got to move every voter, everyone to their districts. And then once we get that, we have to send voter cards to the voters, and the deadline for signatures is January 13th. So, and again, Christmas is coming. I got staff that are going to be on vacation. Myself, I'm going to be on vacation. So, I mean, we're trying the best that we can. Right now, I'm working on the legislative and congressional that has come out. And like I said, there's going to be a lot of, like I'm saying right now, there's a lot of splits in the congressional. Congressional is going to have like 14 splits. Legislative's got like 85 splits. And here, I don't know how many splits we're going to have. So the splits are the ones that cost
Splits,
more.
can you,
Splits and precincts.
thank you.
It's more work. So I'm just saying, we need time. So whenever you guys are ready to pass this and everything, I mean, we need our time too. We need about 6 to 8 weeks to get this accomplished. So
And when are you going to be able to send, if we start on the 13th, voter cards have to go out to the voters by the end of the
Well,
year?
well, no, voter cards, I mean, really, the voter cards, at least we need to send them out at least by January, in the middle of January. It's the signatures. It's for walk lists, for the people that need walk lists to walk the streets, that getting signatures. So it's for the campaigns, it's for you guys and everything. So again, we need time for that. So.
Okay. So, and yes, Mr., just one more question for Raymond. I understand that the state map is not satisfied yet and not been approved. I think there's a lawsuit against the current state map. Is that correct?
Yes.
And when, do we have any idea of when that is going to be satisfied? He's standing right behind you.
I think Brian might know.
I think I might have the most information on that. There is a target trial date of the week of December 7th for that litigation. The court has been made aware from the Illinois State Board of Elections, kind of their timeline, which I think also kicks into some of the county clerk timelines. But my guess says that if this map is upheld, you'll have something, you'll have a finality by the end of December, at least for this election cycle. If not, it could go possibly longer, but the court is definitely pushing for a very quick resolution and has asked for alternatives from the parties. It considers itself to be in a remedial phase, which means they're looking at maps by other parties, including the Republican Party, MALDEF, the NAACP, UCRO, which is United Congress of Christian Religious Organizations, I believe. Zach might know the name better than I do. But so they are going to be looking at maps that are going to be submitted November 8th by the plaintiffs. Briefing on that should be done by November 22nd, it looks like, and we'll see what the court wants to do at that point. But I know they're very well aware of the deadline, and I think they're kind of shooting for the end of December as well.
Good. And do we have any input about the congressional maps?
Congressional map obviously passed. There was a motion to reconsider, I think, filed. I could be wrong, but there is somewhat of a hold. It's not gone to the governor's office yet. There is somewhat of a hold before it goes there. There's going to be a lawsuit on the congressional map. I think is still unknown.
Oh, so far, we're good. I'm not gonna wood. Knock on wood. Mr. Shepro.
Another thing that a deadline is my understanding is that the petition period itself has been reduced to, I think, 60 days.
Yes.
Right, so it makes even more important that they be able to do their work
Yes.
because it's only, it's in some cases, it's fewer signatures, but it's not a third fewer signatures. So that's another
Want to get the map done.
consideration. Oh. I guess I was gonna say it, but I guess we sort of have the answer. If we waited till December 29th, it would appear that there's really no way that the clerk's office could have the identifying areas laid out in 2 weeks.
Raymond, can you confirm that, please? So that we have that on record, and please say no.
Yeah, no. So like I said, we need from like 6 to 8 weeks to accomplish what we need to do. Because it's only, like I said, it's the congressional, legislative, and it's a lot. So.
Shepro, question for Raymond.
Yes, absolutely.
And Raymond, when you were referring earlier, the numbers you were talking about would create a new ballot style every time there's a split.
Yes,
And so if you had one precinct that's split into 2 board districts, that's 2 ballot styles. But if those partial precincts are also in different congressional district, that's yet a 3rd, 4th, 5th on into infinity,
Mhm.
yes.
all of which I believe have to be done from scratch.
Yes.
You can't just say, well, these people didn't move, so we don't have to do it.
Yeah, no.
Because you have to create a whole new,
For example, right now, Rutland 2 has 15, I say tax code, so it's ballot styles. So with all this new legislative and congressional, we're gonna add 10 more. So now you're up to 30. And then I haven't even done county board, so, so yeah. So when you, I know you guys talk about precincts and everything. And a lot of times in 2010, I saw the 2010 map for congressional. A lot of them stayed in the townships and within precincts. And a lot of the congressional stay with the precincts too, because they get the same shape files from us, so they can not have a lot of ballot styles. So we want less ballot styles than more ballot styles, so. But
Yes, Mr. Martin.
Well, isn't it true if the issues among the Aurora districts are resolved, then that's what's within our jurisdiction and we can move ahead, right?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear you.
If, as I understand the conversation, if in fact the Aurora districts are resolved, then that's what our jurisdictional interest is. And so we can move ahead and our timeline stays intact without effort, right?
That's exactly correct. That's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, so that's realistically the only issue in front of us, and it sounds like it may be an issue that is resolved.
That's correct.
Oh.
No?
well, I think there are some other issues in other districts. My understanding is that the largest concentration is Aurora, but that's kind of a self-contained problem with a self-contained solution. I think there's still some, Roger alluded to 2 things that we're working on outside of Aurora. And those hopefully will get resolved by the end of the week.
So they have to be. So what I would like to do is to have this committee, I've asked for all of your suggestions by Thursday so that we can get those drafts of changes to Roger on Friday, giving his staff both Friday, all day Friday, and all day Monday to review. They have to be allowed that courtesy of 48 hours to be able to take a look at it and to make any kind of adjustments, because the potential impact, I don't like, and I think you can all understand this, I don't like sharing a map with the public until I've got a chance to see it and to take a look at it, so that I can understand what the adjustments are and how they've occurred and what they look like. And I think you'd all appreciate that as well. So we don't just go out there and say, here it is, without having at least a couple set of eyes on it. It'll be posted on Tuesday, because I cannot, I frankly don't know at what point, if you're still working on changes, they may not be available to me, the map, until afternoon on Monday. So Tuesday morning, we can post it. And then if there's any changes that this task force would like to suggest, please do so. Because there'll be time for the county board meeting who's going to pass the provisional map for review to the public. So they have time to look at it, just like we want time to review it, to take a look at it. So we are in a tight time frame right now, and I would hope, that except obviously Aurora is working towards that goal. Thank you for that. Thank you very much for that. That these changes are modest in nature. When we use that word tweak before, this is a time for a tweak. Just is very, very modest, because it's unfair to the members of our public who have been watching this crafting of the map to see substantive changes without their ability to be able to review, to reflect, and to see how it impacts their representation. So, Mr. Shepherd.
Question for State's Attorney. Is there any problem the board acting on Tuesday if the map is not posted to the public until Tuesday morning?
It's your map.
What we would contemplate is the chair simply makes a presentation of the map on Tuesday. There would be no formal action. You would then have a notice, you would publish a notice for the public hearing. It's what we would contemplate.
That would be sufficient to allow the public hearing to take place.
Yes, it's
6
after the
days.
presentation.
6 days is what is needed. So we're exactly at timeline.
I think it was like 6 to 21. I'll have to refresh my memory of when you have to hold the,
Is that correct? 6 to 21 days?
yes, so between 6 and 21 days, you need to hold the public hearing.
Because of the Thanksgiving break, and I know there'll once again be people who may be traveling, who'll be taking holiday time. We've got that week that's going to be interfering with this. Okay, we're good.
I was just
Roger?
going to add the map from today. It is on the county website. It is out there if anybody wants to direct somebody to look at it. So.
Okay, very good. Any other questions?
I'd be happy to meet with Mr. Lankaitis right after the meeting and maybe resolve that issue he mentions.
Yeah, thank you. If that's, if they're available, absolutely.
Sure.
All right, if I hear no other comments,
Mr. Kenyon has a motion then.
Make a motion to adjourn.
thank you for that.
Today, we can come back tomorrow.
I'd like to see you tomorrow.
I'll second that motion, Shepro.
Thank you. May I have an aye to adjourn?
Aye.
Aye. All approved. Any nays? Thank you very much.